Sam. Looking at your astrology chart all the time while you're trying to learn is one of the most damaging things you can do to your astrology studies. And in this video, I'm going to go over the 3 reasons why. I mean, obviously you're interested in learning astrology and understanding yourself as a result. That's why we're all here. Astrology is the study of our place in the cosmos, why we've incarnated, what the nature of our existence is and existence itself. And so to try to understand this more, you need to be objective and you need to be able to have a kind of higher altitude vision of your life. And so the first big problem with looking at your chart too much is you lose this perspective of what astrology actually is. And it's really important. What I mean to say is that when you are focusing so much on your own chart, you are pulling it down towards you as if astrology is just the study of your existence, instead of having your nature extend up toward the highest good. And what it does is it corrupts also the vision of who are you. Now these two are really related. And I broke them out as 2 different things because they also feed on each other, this illusion. So, for instance, the more you see astrology as a way to figure out yourself, and you focus on yourself and your ego, and when I say ego, I just mean your separate self, and the things you want, and how astrology can help you get them, or has shown why you don't get them, and what you can do to make the planets give them to you, and this whole thing. What you're doing is not only minimizing the power of astrology, but you're minimizing your own power. Both of these things sort of collapse on each other. And instead of seeing yourself as this limited creature who is trying to get things and trying to avoid things, when you start to study astrology on a more objective level, which is the last one, non-science objective, then it stops being about this limited you, which is not the true you anyway, it's not the authentic you anyway, and it starts to become about the higher collective source. And again, that's also you. That's your highest self. So you start connecting with yourself on a higher level. You can't understand where you're going if you're still stuck in your own limited vision of it. You know, there's an analogy, I think it was by Jack Canfield, who wrote the Chicken Soup of the Soul series, and he said, you know, you can travel all the way across the country in an automobile driving at night, and your headlights will only illuminate the first like 15 feet in front of you. But you're going somewhere, you're heading to a destination, and even though you don't see the end yet, when you know where you're going and you're focused on something bigger, every little bit of information that you gather connects you to the higher source. But you have to be aiming at something higher. When you're aiming at yourself, instead of pushing your consciousness and attention towards something more objective and less subjective, you are aiming it toward this highest truth of your cosmic self, your universal self. And you start to realize that astrology is not about something related to you as this separate being, your separate ego. It's related to your highest self, and the highest self of everything. So again, when you focus on yourself, then your life is going to revolve around yourself and your ego and your smaller self. Those who excel in astrology put that aside for a while. It's still there. It's okay. That doesn't mean you can't ever look at it. But the problem is when you start basing conclusions on your chart rather than on the scientific rules that make it work. For instance, it would be akin to a doctor who's trying to learn to practice medicine, and he's learning about the nature of disease, and he's just thinking about himself the whole time. He's like, well, I don't know how this works. I mean, I've never had polio, so how am I supposed to know that this is what happens? And I hear this from students all the time. When I explain to them a certain astrological configuration, like one part of it, and it might be something they have, but they're like, well, that didn't happen to me that way. And again, it's just one part of the puzzle. And once they stop looking at everything through themselves, they'll start to see that everything is a stepping stone toward higher awareness. So when you stop running the filter of astrology through yourself and your chart and taking every single thing you learn and seeing how that's related to you while you're learning, it starts to become much more expansive. Because the other thing is, you're probably not qualified to make these conclusions yet. It's like a doctor is not really qualified to examine himself. I hardly ever look at my chart. In fact, I obviously know it, but day to day when I'm looking at what's happening in my life, I'm looking at the current sky, I'm looking at the current weather. I know my dashas within that. But most of what happens day to day is shown in the universal weather, the universal cosmic mind, not about you. And I even have this like at my member site. I do a comprehensive daily forecast that talks about all the important placements based on the Vedic Panchanga and also the planets in the sky. Comprehensive every day. This is what I pay attention to. And I still have people, so many times, they'll join my site and they'll say, can I get this for me? Can I get this for my chart? What about my chart? How does my chart play into this? We're so egotistical. Your chart is, frankly, in many ways, insignificant relative to that. It functions within that framework. So again, this is a higher leverage, not just of astrology, but of your life, of consciousness, of your relationship to everything else. When it just revolves around you and what's happening with you, then you're not connected to other things. And as an astrologer, you need to be objective. Good astrologers are non-judgmental. They're not judging other people's karma, because what they're seeing is the universality of karma. I recently did a teaching where I talked about speaking about astrology in a way that's 100% correct all the time. And it is, if you connect with it on that level of shared karma. We all share the same common karmas, yet we focus on the specific micro expressions of them. We focus on our relationships and our specific problem because we get these guys who are this way. But everyone has relationship problems. We have a much higher, once you step into a higher perspective on all of it, then your grouchy little miserable paltry expression of it starts to be less important. But again, this is analogous to taking astrology and focusing it on all of your problems in your life and everything happening to you, instead of extending it upward. I'm not judging you for it. We all do it. What I'm saying though, and that's still there. Your life, you still have a relationship, you still have career and all, that's fine. But the real miracle of studying astrology is you get to step out of your microscopic, myopic perspective and start to extend those things and start seeing how the fact that all the guys that come into your life are this way is a function of this part of you, of your true consciousness on a higher level. So that you can then connect with the more universal energy of that. Let's say that you have Saturn interrupting your relationships. Then you're going to get guys who are older, maybe controlling and fearful, because that's a part of you. You want to be controlled. You want to, when someone is fearful and trying to control you, you recognize that. So trying to understand the highest quality of that is what happens when you start to study astrology authentically and stop trying to just spin it around your chart. So I want you to ponder these things a lot, because it really interrupts you stepping into a higher dimension of astrology and actually studying it, rather than just having it be something that entertains you, where you get, you find something online that talks about your chart and you're like, oh yeah, that's so much me, and then just keeping it revolving around you. If you're ever going to step outside of that, you need some kind of dharmic science to take you out of that. Astrology is the best one, in my opinion, because it teaches you directly about all those universal forces within you. So this is why I have certification courses and programs to teach people that, and if you're interested in that, you could look into that as well. But I wanted to make this video about looking at your chart so much and realizing that it's one of the things that really interrupts your higher learning. So I hope this was helpful. Let other people know and share this as well.